In a spur-of-the-moment decision, a handsome actor whisks a hotel roommate away to Los Angeles. However, things take a sinister turn when she's left alone in the apartment and begins seeing things alluding to her dark past, making her question reality. In an apartment bathroom, a woman named Monica pleads with her tormentor. She sobs hysterically, saying she only wants to be happy, before setting herself on fire. On the floor, it shows that the woman has taken her own life by self-immolation. Nearby, a camera records the ghastly scene. Weeks later in New York, Katie Connor is preparing to go to work and takes her medications. She drives to work and stops when a woman pushing a stroller crosses the street. Katie watches the woman as she walks away, looking at her wistfully. Later, she pulls into the parking lot of the hotel where she works as a magician and checks her medications. She then dumps half of the bottle's contents into her palm and stares at it, contemplating ingesting it all while working the front desk. Katie spots her friend Debbie talking enthusiastically to a man in the lobby. After their conversation, Debbie excitedly tells Katie that she just met Jay Cutter, a famous Hollywood actor. Katie seems uninterested in the information, but Debbie mentions that Jay is in town to shoot a movie. While working, Katie hears loud noises from the hallway. She goes to check and finds Jay Cutter banging on the vending machine, trying to get his change. Katie offers to help and manages to retrieve his coins. He thanks her and tells her that she'll be very useful later that night. Katie has nightmares in bed the following day while Katie is working. Debbie tells her that Jay has been waiting for her in the lobby. Jay spots her and invites her to his movie. Later, they arrive at his filming location, and Jay sits her down while he prepares for a scene. She then overhears two women's conversation about Jay after the shoot. Jay gets to know her better, but Katie is still hesitant to open up. Later in Katie's car, Jay invites her over for a drink, but Katie declines. Jay shares that Hollywood is not all glitz and glamour and that people go crazy trying to be famous. Jay then tries to kiss her, but Katie stops him. The next day, Katie meets with her psychiatrist, but unfortunately, he isn't prepared and fumbles for her file. He then asks if she wants to talk about a traumatic experience from her past, which makes Katie angry. She walks out of the session and makes love with Jay later that night. The following day, Katie informs Debbie that she's going to LA with Jay for a few days. Debbie is happy for her friend but asks her to be careful. Katie arrives in LA with Jay, and they immediately head to Jay's apartment building. As they arrive, cameras start to record Katie. She steps into the elevator and meets Father Bill O'Shea. Bill asks Katie how long she'll be staying, to which she replies that she isn't sure as Jay and Katie reach their floor. Bill tells her they'll be seeing each other again soon while walking down the hall. Katie notices that all the apartment numbers are random and asks Jay why that is, but he just shrugs in the apartment. Jay introduces Katie to his cat, Flair, but when Katie is about to pet it, she sends vibrations from the kitchen countertop. Startled at the intensity of the vibrations, she tells Jay about them immediately. She surmises they're coming from the floor below. Jay explains that he got it all for free. He then asks her to wear one of the dresses to a party. Later that night, when Jay and Katie arrive at the party, one of his friends greets them. They meet up with the rest of his acquaintances, Colin and Jenna. His friends talk casually about taking advantage of women, which bothers Katie, so Jay gets them to stop being agitated. Katie heads to the bathroom to take her medications but is shocked to find her canister empty. She goes back to search for Jay and ends up on the balcony, where she overhears his two male friends talk about her and a woman named Monica. Katie asks them who Monica is, and they explain that she's Jay's ex, who set herself on fire. Jenna arrives and tells Katie to not blow her chance with Jay because everyone at that party would love to be with him. Katie goes back to the house to search for Jay. She enters one of the rooms and is surprised to see a man watching a live recording of a woman screaming in a stairwell. She then asks the man if he's seen Jay, but he closes the door on her. Finally, she finds Jay playing the piano in front of a crowd of soon-to-be women. Jay gets a call from his manager and tells Katie to go on ahead to the apartment. As Katie is climbing up the stairwell, the lights turn off. She then notices a child running below and disappears. The lights are then turned back on, and Jay arrives. Katie asks him if he saw a girl, and he says he didn't. The next day, Katie and Jay lounge in the pool while the drone flies overhead and records Katie comments on the lack of tenants in the building, and he explains that most of them are busy working on movie sets. Jay complains that his new script is awful and elaborates that people start to anticipate your self-destruction once you find success in Hollywood. They both share how they tried ending their lives before, and Katie tells him he's her reason for a living. Jay forces a smile and says nothing. Katie then leaves to get sunscreen from their apartment's bathroom. Katie searches for sunblock when she notices a straight razor on the sink. She returns it to the medicine cabinet but is shocked to find a plethora of anti-anxiety meds. While walking through the hallway, she sees a woman inside another apartment who asks Katie what her hourly rate is. Katie leaves later that night. She is woken by footsteps running into the room. She sees the girl again and asks her name. The child says her name is Grace before running away. Katie then rises from bed and opens the front door to check, oblivious to the overhead camera recording her. Katie returns to the bedroom and sees Jay gone. She notices that Jay looks troubled and asks him if the audition is bothering him. He doesn't reply to her question and tells her to go back to sleep. The next morning, Katie searches for her phone charger and asks Jay if he's seen it. He tells her that he hasn't and leaves Katie to go to his audition. Hours later, Katie spots a man recording her from outside the window. Jay suddenly arrives, and when she turns back around, the man is gone. Jay then announces that he got the part, but he notices Katie looking bothered. She then tells him that she saw a man recording her outside the window. All of a sudden, a window cleaner pops out. Jay laughs at her and pops a champagne bottle to celebrate his casting. He starts packing because he has to leave for the shoot immediately. He explains that he'll be gone for 3 days, which upsets Katie. Jay says that if their roles were reversed, he would have supported her, so Katie apologizes. Katie accompanies Jade down to the street and kisses him goodbye while watching him drive away. Katie notices the window cleaners by the curb staring at her. She feels uneasy and goes back inside. Meanwhile, cameras inside the building record her every move. While climbing up the stairs, she bumps into a scared-looking woman fleeing from something. Later that night, Father Bill visits Katie to check up on her. She then asks them if he's seen Grace around, but Bill makes an inappropriate and disturbing joke, which unsettles Katie. He then replies that no children are living in the apartment building now. Afterward, she discovers that all of her medications are gone. She remembers Jay's stash and decides to take one of his. Later that night she wakes up to investigate the cause of the vibration. Katie goes down to the 4th floor and opens the room directly below theirs. She discovers a TV recording studio and is about to investigate further when a man suddenly closes the door on her and tells her to leave. Grace appears at the end of the hallway, and Katie follows her but finds herself at a dead end. While Katie's cleaning the bathroom, she notices the straight razor on the sink and returns it to the medicine cabinet. She then spots writing on the ceiling, telling her to go into the kitchen and count to 7. Katie counts to 7, and the phone suddenly rings. She picks it up, and the man demands to speak to Grace. She ends the call and counts to 7 again. The phone rings once more, and the caller introduces himself as the man who violated her years ago. Katie then asks Bill for help, but when they return to check, the writing has mysteriously disappeared. Bill then asks her what the name Grace means to her. Katie explains that her father and mother loved the actress Grace Kelly and that if she had a daughter, she'd. Bill asks if either she or other family members have ever been diagnosed with mental illness, and Katie just nods. Bill then suggests that she leave the apartment for a change of scenery that evening. Katie uses a payphone to call Debbie and asks her to write down the apartment's phone number and address. She assures her friend that she's fine and asks her to call in the morning, as Katie's about to leave. A man recognizes her and accosts her before taking a selfie without her consent. Katie then finds a cell phone shop and gets a new charger. When she walks up the stairs, a man follows her. Annoyed, she asks the man if he also lives in the building. The man mocks her and follows her up the stairs, repeating the same question. Katie barely enters the apartment and locks the door. She then goes to the toilet but hears the front door opening, thinking it's Jay. She calls out to him, not seeing the 2 hooded men waiting for her in the kitchen. They attack her and run off with her phone and keys. Katie dials 911, and the police immediately arrive. The 2 cops question Katie and ask her uncomfortable questions. The lady cop then violates her and tells Katie to kill herself. Sometime later, Katie is weeping on the bathroom floor. She notices the straight razor on the sink and contemplates using it on herself, but ultimately decides against it. Furious, she throws a can at the mirror, shattering it and revealing a hidden camera. Alarmed, Katie tries to call Jay, but it keeps going to voicemail. She locks herself in the apartment and takes Jace's medications to calm herself. The following day, she wakes up to find the chair that she used to prop up against the front door on top of the kitchen counter. She goes to the bathroom and is horrified that the mirror is intact. She then checks the apartment's phone and finds out that Debbie has been leaving her dozens of messages. Katie then tries to call Debbie but is confused when someone else picks up the phone. Katie wanders around the apartment building and is horrified to find a dozen cameras on the ceiling. Jay finally calls back, and Katie recounts everything to him instead of consoling her. Jay thinks he's talking nonsense. Katie cries, and it tells him that whoever is tormenting her has not surpassed. Katie leaves the apartment and is walking towards the elevator when a man suddenly stalks her. She escapes through the stairwell and is about to exit the building, but she sees the two cops guarding the doors, and with no other choice, she runs to the elevator, where she escapes them in the nick of time. She goes to the 6th floor only to be intercepted by Grace, who asks Katie why she murdered her. Katie tearfully apologizes and tells her it wasn't her fault. She's spooked. Katie goes to Bill's apartment to ask for help, but instead, he berates her for terminating her pregnancy and says taking her life is the only way to save herself. She leaves this apartment, and Bill screams that there is no atonement for her. Katie takes a breather in the hallway, where she runs into a woman looking to flirt. She asks her to come with her, but the woman just looks at her oddly and walks away, with nowhere else to go. Katie goes back to the apartment, where she finds a newspaper with a headline that says she died of an overdose. Furious, Katie destroys everything in the apartment that could house a camera. While Bill is talking to someone on the phone, he tells them that they're not going dark and assures them that Katie is going to escape back to the apartment. A furious Katie throws a clock at a poster hanging beside the bed. When it goes right through the wall, she discovers a secret passageway that links to all of the apartments. She travels through the passage until she sees the inside of Bill's home. As she peers closer, she makes a noise, alerting the older man. Katie decides to move along so Bill doesn't catch her. Meanwhile, Debbie reaches the building entrance, but Bill sees this and intercepts her. Katie hides in a TV recording room and discovers that she's part of a demented game where people gamble on whether the players live or die after subjecting them to psychological torment. Concurrently, Bill has intercepted Debbie and told her that Jay and Katie have already vacated the premises. Debbie doesn't believe him, but Bill shows her an empty apartment to try and convince her. Back in the TV recording room, she acts and hacks the female cop to death. She then notices surveillance footage of Debbie and begins to panic. Katie catches up to them and tells Debbie to run, but Bill stabs the clueless woman. Katie escapes to the stairwell and heads to the 3rd floor. She hides in one of the apartments and finds a body hanging from the ceiling. A phone suddenly rings, and Katie answers it only to hear Bill threatening her. She hears footsteps and hides in one of the rooms. Jay comes in to search for her, but Katie puts the razor against the snack, taking him hostage. Jay tries to explain that he isn't a part of the game, but Katie doesn't believe him. They ride the elevator up to the rooftop, where they are intercepted by Bill. Both men then argue, and as SJ is about to reveal how Katie can survive the game, Bill shoots him. Katie runs and tries to find a way to escape. Bill begins taunting her and tells her to jump down onto the pavement below. Unbeknownst to him, she spots a scissor lift a few floors below and jumps onto it. Bill looks over the ledge but sees that she's still alive. Panicked, he orders the team to shut down the operation. Katie calls out for help and drops to the ground. Police arrive and take her to the ambulance, where they administer CPR. Mr. First asks the policeman what her name is, but Katie just smiles. Weeks later, Bill and the woman conduct an interview with the next actress they plan to hire to lure more victims into their operation.